The question that I'm asked the most is, why did you go to law school? So I thought, in celebration of me hitting 20,000 subscribers, and thank you all so much for your support. This is such a dream come true to have hit 20,000 just a few months after starting my YouTube channel. I pinch myself all the time. So I thought today I would do my why I went to law school video. And I went to law school for very pragmatic reasons. One was, as the oldest child and as an immigrant who immigrated here from Taiwan when I was 7, I grew up working in the swap meets, and that's where I spent every weekend of my childhood from the age of 7 to the age of 18. And having parents who don't speak English and having young siblings to take care of, I did not think my dream of becoming a novelist was practical, but I had started thinking about becoming a lawyer in junior high. And maybe because I've never allowed myself to dream, and so I thought, if I can't hack it, I can't make it as a novelist, I will be an attorney. And being an attorney was really appealing to me because I wanted to make a difference. As somebody who was bullied for not speaking English and not wearing the right clothes, because I always wore secondhand clothes, I was made fun of and bullied. And so I wanted to be able to give those who are voiceless and powerless basically someone to protect them. And as you guys can tell from my videos, it's very important that justice be brought against those who take advantage of others. That's why I have a special deep hatred of influencers who scam their loyal fans. And I am a huge proponent of the Davids of the world who dare to take on the Goliath, like the studios in Hollywood, like the big companies. So I went to law school because I wanted to be a DA. It was my dream to work as an assistant district attorney in the LA County DA's office. So for my first summer, I went to Loyola Law School. It was an amazing education because it was humbling as heck. I went to Berkeley, which is, not a shabby school to go to. And when I went to law school, it was humbling because everybody at law school is incredibly smart. So you're up against some of the most intelligent people, and it was really hard, but I loved being intellectually challenged. Like, if I could be a professional student, I totally would. I would go back and get my PhD in English, maybe philosophy, maybe history. I just love being a student. So I loved being in law school. And for my first summer of law school, I chose student externship at the DA's office, and I was assigned to the family violence division. And this was probably one of the hardest and most heartbreaking summers of my life because it was my job to summarize murder books of slain children. And during that summary, it meant I had to look at countless photos of slain children. And I could not imagine that this was something that someone had to do day in and day out. I have such incredible, deep respect for the DAs. And the DA I worked for, her name was Deborah Brazil, and she was just such a badass. I mean, she would stare down these defendants in court, and it was like so mesmerizing and a little terrifying because I was just like, oh my goodness, she's so brave. And I spent a lot of that summer crying, and I asked her, how can you do this day in and day out? And she said, because somebody has to. Because if I don't do it, then where does the justice come from? How do we hold people accountable for what they have done? So my summer was so fascinating because I met somebody there who I believe is living my parallel life. Her name is Lisa Joy, and some of you might know her. She is the co-creator of Westworld. She is a famous screenwriter and now director. She just directed her first film with Hugh Jackman called Reminiscence, and she was doing her externship at the same time. She was visiting from Harvard Law, and her and I became friends of sorts. Not super close, but friendly enough. She actually invited me to the house that she was staying at, and it just so happened to be Christopher Nolan's house because at the time she was dating Christopher Nolan's brother, Jonathan Nolan, who she is now married to. And this was the time when Christopher Nolan went to London to film the first Dark Knight. And it was like kind of an out-of-body experience, but it was a very small, cute house in the LA area. It wasn't ostentatious at all because this was before their Dark Knight fame, right? And what was so fascinating about meeting Lisa was we talked about our dream, and her dream was to be a writer, which was also mine, but her dream was something she actually pursued because after law school, she went on to write on the show Pushing Daisy, and then it led her to creating Westworld and to where she is now. Sometimes I think about her and I think, if I had decided to pursue my dream as a novelist, I wonder if my life wouldn't be different. But then I wouldn't have had the experience I've had being an attorney in Hollywood, and I don't regret any of it. My life is amazing. I get to work on some amazing films. Now as a business affairs executive, I just make the deals. I don't actually draft as much as I used to when I was a production attorney like at Disney or Skydance or BuzzFeed. Now I make the deals and we hand off the deals to production legal, who is actually hired to do the paperwork for each film. So why didn't I become a DA? Well, the summer was amazing, right? I worked on this attempted murder case where this woman was basically chased down in the middle of the street in front of her 2 children by their children's father and stabbed repeatedly with a knife. She did survive, but when Deborah and I went to go visit her, she was in a wheelchair and she had to be wheeled in, and she was huge. And I don't mean this in a mean way like she had gained weight, but she looked like she was pregnant. We did not know this because Deborah inherited this case from another assistant DA, because at the time the DA's office was so overworked and there were so many cases that were just piled up. People were asking other assistant DAs to help them out. And Deborah leaned over to me and she says, "Is she pregnant?" And I said, "I think she is." So we had to adjust the charges to 2 attempted murders. And that case was really heartbreaking because what people don't realize is a lot of times the eyewitness, who is the victim, refuses to testify against the defendant because they're usually their husbands or the fathers of their children. So they don't want to put them away and send them away to prison. So that defendant ended up walking because our witness, the victim, was a hostile witness and she wouldn't testify against her children's father. The reason why I didn't work at the DA's office was because the LA County DA's office was having a hiring freeze. And so I actually started out my career as a business litigator. That's why I always say I've been practicing for 17 years, but only 15 years in Hollywood. So after law school, I went and worked as a business litigator. And it's interesting because in law school, they never tell you what it means to be a litigator versus a transactional attorney. You think of shows like Ally McBeal or Law and Order, you think that you go to trial, you go to court every day. But as a civil business litigator, you actually end up settling your cases, I would say 95% of the time. So as a young litigator, what I did was I would go to court for motions, I would go to settlement sessions, I would go to settlement meetings, and I would get my client a $10,000 settlement. I would write a letter to somebody, send it off, and never hear from anybody. Or you would do a whole lot of discovery. And it just did not feel like I was really making a difference in anyone's life. So when I almost was hitting my 2-year mark, I got some really good advice from a very famous talent lawyer who said, you have to get out now. If you don't want to be handcuffed to being a litigator, you have to get out and do something that you love and you care about. So I really wanted to represent creatives. Specifically, I wanted to represent writers because I have a special love and a protective passion for writers. My husband is an architect, he's a creative, and I would have friends that would bring their screenwriting agreements for me to look at. And I thought, wow, it would be really cool to protect creatives. So I wanted to get into Hollywood. I decided to take the leap and I worked for an attorney in Venice on the boardwalk. It was just him and me. And I learned to work on independent films. We represented talent like directors and writers and actors. And it was such an amazing experience. I mean, it was definitely paying my dues because I was paid probably less than an assistant. I went from being a 6-figure litigator to getting paid nothing. I mean, my husband and I were so poor. When we got married, we had to do our own wedding and we didn't even have money to go on a honeymoon. But it was all worth it because the next job I got was at Disney. And I'm going to continue the second part of my career because it's very long and windy, and I would love to share it with you in my next video. When I first thought about, what is my legacy? This was kind of my midlife crisis last year. What is my legacy? What am I leaving behind, right? My husband is leaving airports all over the world, and I know my kids are my most greatest legacy, but what creative endeavor am I leaving behind? I'm a type A perfectionist. I decided to take on the hardest challenge there was, which was starting and growing a YouTube channel. Could not believe that I would be at 20,000 just after a few months. According to some fellow creators I've met along the way, they are telling me this is a very rare achievement. And I am always thinking, why am I not at 50,000? Why am I not at 100,000? But I have to remember to enjoy this journey. Each video that I make is a story that I'm sharing with you. It's a part of me. It's my attempt to let you feel a little better about yourself. That was the goal of my channel, was I wanted to pull back the veil and let everybody know that everyone's life is not perfect. The perfect lives that we see on social media, it's a fiction, just like the celebrities in Hollywood. I've represented talent at the highest level, and I will tell you, they don't live better lives. They just have, fancier cars and clothes, bigger houses. Maybe they travel in a nicer class of air travel, but they all encounter the same stresses, the heartbreaks, friends not returning their text messages, or bosses who don't respect them, or kids who don't listen to them. We all encounter the same thing, and I created my channel because I wanted to support women. I wanted to support people of color. I wanted to let people who look like me know that it's okay to do the practical thing, to go be a lawyer, and then later on live the life that they were hoping for. You can have a parallel life. I always think about the movie Sliding Doors, and I think of this life that I'm living parallel to Lisa Joyce, who went to law school at the same time I did, who did an externship at the DA's office like I did, but she decided to be a writer and I decided to be a lawyer. And now here we kind of both intersect and meet, and I get to be creative. And what if I told you there was no wrong choice? If you're trying to decide what to do with your life and you're like, should I do this or should I do that? What if I told you there was no wrong choice and that it all will turn out amazing? Because you can make one choice, like be a writer and become a writer, or you can make another choice to be a lawyer and yet still become a storyteller 17 years later. I love this so much. I love you all as my community for supporting me. I could not believe I get to do what I get to do, which is be an attorney in Hollywood, be a mom to my 2 amazing kids, and get to have a YouTube channel where I get to break down Hollywood breaking news stories, give my legal analysis to it, do these types of videos where I share a little bit about myself and my journey. This is Tyler, the Hollywood attorney. What a tickle that is that I get to say that. And remember, we were born perfect, and sometimes we forget, and we think that we need to have all the right answers. And I'm telling you today, you don't have to have it all figured out. Sometimes it's okay to do the thing that you need to do and put your dreams aside, or to go after your dreams right now, because that is ultimately what will give you fulfillment. You'll know what's the right thing to do because it's just like, you just want to keep doing it. And this is why I make my videos at 10 p.m. or midnight, because I love this so much. I always think sometimes, oh my God, I want to quit because I'm so tired, but I won't ever quit this because I love it so much. And thank you for your support. And I can't wait to see you in the next video. Bye.